Dade, a huge Columbo fan and a small business owner living in Santa Cruz, California. And with me is my brother.
Hello, I'm Paul McDade. I'm an actor and an editor living here in Pasadena, working in Los Angeles and the surrounding area.
And this is Trenchcoat Cigar Peugeot, Wandering with Columbo. In each episode, we'll bring you a little Hollywood history, glamour, and behind the scenes as we walk you through Columbo, one of America's greatest TV detective series. Okay, so Paul, today we're talking about Suitable for Framing. This is season 1, episode 6, and it first aired on November 17th, 1971. Every episode, we have a special drink and snack inspired by the show. And today's drink is champagne, and our snack is an appetizer on a toothpick.
I didn't have any toothpicks, so I just cut up some pieces that would be suitable for a toothpick.
That's so perfect. You know, I don't have any toothpicks either, Paul, but I put some food on a skewer.
Okay.
So I'm having one of these. Ooh, I heard that. Champagne popping.
Yep. It's a Piper Sonoma Brut. So
nice. I have these little single serving bottles that are really cute. So I'm having a Barefoot Bubbly Brut Rosé Champagne. It's pretty good. And then on my skewer, I put a little tomato, olive, and feta cheese, and I made a little pattern. I took a picture of it. I'll put it on our Instagram account.
Okay, yeah.
What's your collection of toothpickable foods?
Well, gluten-free Hawaiian bread, chopped up into little squares.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah, and some cheese, the pepper jack.
Yum. I love pepper jack.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers, Pa. It's good to be recording again.
Yep, sure is.
So as we go through this episode, we'll get to the scene featuring the champagne and the appetizers on sticks. And before we start talking about this particular episode, we wanted to give a little shout out to this really wonderful article that came out in the New York Times, July 25th, 2020, by Elizabeth Vincentelli. And the headline is Just One More Thing, One More Time, Rewatching Columbo to see how it handled class and took down so many elites. Any of you Columbo fans out there who have not seen this New York Times piece by Elizabeth Vincentelli should absolutely read it. You're going to love it. And we just wanted to mention it and just say something that we loved about it. This is written in the midst of Black Lives Matter movement and this call to defund the police. And this author writes about how Columbo represents this opportunity for a different kind of detective. You know, a detective who doesn't wear a uniform, doesn't carry a weapon, just uses his very attentive observation skills and his ability to conversate and question to get to the bottom of mysteries. And then the other piece that the author talks about is that Columbo is always bringing down the elite. So he's just this very humble, kind of rumpled character who is always up against these very rich and powerful individuals. And he manages to come out victorious. And that's one of the reasons that this particular author loves Columbo. And that's one of the reasons that I think Paul and I both also love Columbo.
Yeah, I concur.
So check that out, all you Columbo fans listening. So I have a little synopsis, very brief synopsis of this episode, suitable for framing. So an art critic named Dale murders his wealthy uncle who owns quite an art collection. And he frames his uncle's ex-wife, who's his uncle's current partner, in order to inherit his uncle's art collection. Did I leave anything out, do you think, Paul?
There's a couple of little twists at the end, but that's part of the fun of watching the episode.
Yeah, there are some good twists in this one for sure. The opening scene is at the uncle's house. It's a really beautiful home. The uncle is seated at a grand piano. He's playing the piano in his bathrobe or nightrobe or whatever, while his nephew is standing and smiling and watching. His nephew is Dale Kingston. And while the uncle, named Rudy Matthews, while he's playing, Dale Kingston pulls out a gun and shoots him. And one of the interesting things is this episode has one of the fastest, maybe the fastest murder in terms of when it occurs in the episode. So it occurs like within a minute or 2 minutes. This guy is dead. And I wanted to point out that the scene of the uncle's house was filmed at Copa de Oro Road in Los Angeles. And this is according to Columbo map that I found at columbophile.com. And it's a house up in Bel Air. It's like in between Bel Air and Beverly Hills. And according to IMDb, it was also used in the Beverly Hillbillies. Although I could not verify that that was true. But it's a really big home. It's over a 5,000 square foot home, 5 bedroom, 4 bathroom. And you can see in the opening scene, it's just like this grand home, really large rooms, really tall ceilings, crystal chandeliers, like multiple crystal chandeliers in the living room and entryway. And then this like beautiful golden yellow carpet and sleek 60s style sofa. It feels really, really grand. Right now it's valued at about $8 million.
Oh.
It sits on about 2 acres up in the Bel Air area, so it's a pretty good chunk of land. And I just want to point out that Dale looks pretty awesome. He's wearing a crushed velvet dark blue suit with a really big matching bow tie and then this big ruffles on his white shirt. And then we get a nice clear shot of his cuffs, which have smaller but matching ruffles, and then a beautiful little cuff link.
I love the ruffles. Yeah, the ruffles he has. It's so cool.
It's so cool. I feel like the ruffles give us a preview of what kind of person he is, because as the show goes on, I feel like you don't really get to like this person at all. And his sense of like, I don't know, excessive attention.
Anything.
Yeah, excessive attention to his outfit or whatever. You just start to get a sense for maybe we're not going to love this character here. I did a little bit of a rabbit hole on the art. So the uncle is an art collector. And I love in this scene, the director, or I don't know who did this exactly, but they really highlight the drama of the murder by zooming in on some of the paintings that are part of the uncle's collection. And I had to find out, well, who are those paintings? You know, Paul, our mom, is a painter, and we always had these books of like famous painters and their works in the house growing up. And so there were 2 Rembrandts. I don't know, you probably didn't go down this rabbit hole, did you, Paul, of the paintings?
I looked up the one artist that Columbo mentions, De Groot.
De Groot, yeah.
I looked at artist's work, and it was pretty interesting.
Very good. Okay, well, you'll have to tell us what you learned. In this scene, they don't show any De Groots, but they show 2 Rembrandts. And I remember our mom loved Rembrandt, and we had one of his like coffee table type books. I don't know, do you remember that, Paul?
Oh yeah, I knew that she loved him, yeah.
Yeah, so Rembrandt does such a wonderful job of like using the dark to really highlight his subject and his, doing these amazing portraits. So one of the paintings in this opening scene is Girl at a Window. It's the young girl who I think her chin is in her hand and she's like looking out. And then it's Portrait of Saskia as Flora, which is a woman with this like beautiful headband of flowers in her hair. She maybe looks like she's going to get married or going somewhere special.
Is that the black and white one?
Yeah, it was. Well, there was a little bit of color, but I don't know how it came through.
I just looked at it. Yeah, no, that one's really cool.
Yeah.
I like the black and white one after that too.
Yeah, so after that, there's a sketch, and this is what I called Mom about this today. I was like, Mom, what is this sketch? Is that a Picasso? And she said, yeah, that's definitely a Picasso charcoal, sketch, but she didn't know the actual name of that portrait.
Did you look it up?
I could not figure out. I started to look up all of these, paintings that I could maybe describe to Google. But when you Google Picasso charcoal or sketches, there's so many. I didn't have time to page through all the possibilities, but that's a Picasso for sure. Neoclassical Picasso charcoal sketch. And then the last one that I looked up was there's a portrait of an old woman praying at her table before her meal.
Mm-hmm.
And that was by Nicholas Mays.
Yeah.
And that was actually a student of Rembrandt's.
Oh, okay.
So we have 2 Rembrandts, a student of a Rembrandt, and then a Picasso. And there's some other stuff, but I think there might have been a Monet that came in. But those 4 that I pointed out were the ones that were really used to highlight the drama of the original murder scene, which I really enjoyed that part.
Yeah, that was a little different. I liked it a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of took a back seat on checking out the artwork, but I do love it. And, Peter Falk was an artist who did a lot of drawings, and he had showings and stuff too.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. And incidentally, so did the actor playing Del Kingston. His daughter, Phyllis Rosenblatt, is also an artist.
Oh, that's so cool.
I think she did drawings. I think she had work at different galleries in New York, like M55, Peter Cooper's, Broome Street Gallery, Yale University Art Gallery might have her work, if it's the same person under the name Phyllis G. Rosenblatt.
Do you know, what his subject was or anything?
Yeah, he did women.
I'm not surprised somehow.
Yeah, you can look it up online. I haven't looked a lot at his work, but I see different men. I see men in the pictures. One of my acting teachers in New York, I mentioned in one of the Columbos, Jean Hammonds, was an actress teacher that I had in Huntsville. She's originally from Alabama.
Oh, cool.
She was at Harvard Berghoff School. She just ran into him at a corner in Manhattan one day, and he asked, "Can I draw you?" And she said, "Yeah."
Wow, that's super cool. I didn't know that. Okay, well, in this opening scene after the murder and the beautiful shot of the beautiful paintings, Dale Kingston, the nephew, covers his uncle with an electric blanket and then goes on to try to sort of trash the house, sort of superficially trash the house, scratches up a door lock to make it look like a burglary. And he takes 2 Degas pastels of the dancing women, and then his girlfriend shows up. Tracy O'Connor is Dale Kingston's girlfriend. And I just have to say that she is in full 70s glory with her clothes and her hair. She looks fantastic. She's wearing this tight, long, red turtleneck sweater that has a large chain with a watch on the end. And then she's wearing this wide, braided brown belt. She's wearing it real low on her hips over this red sweater. And then she's got on these very wide-legged striped half pants, and she's wearing some dark boots.
I think you and Elliot should, next year for Halloween, he should go as Dale Kingston and you should go as Edna Matthews.
Yes. No, Tracy O'Connor.
Tracy O'Connor.
Oh my gosh, Paul, I was totally thinking that today.
Were you really?
I should. No. I was like, I should wear some Tracy O'Connor clothes next Halloween, but nobody in the world will know who I am except you. I'll take a picture, I'll text it to you, and you'll know that I'm being Tracy O'Connor.
Okay. I did that. I created one of my other acting teachers. She said, pick some person in a newspaper article, and then I want you to write a monologue about that person and be that person. And so while we were living out here, we were in Highland Park at the time, and I found a newspaper and I came to a woman and I was like, I got to do it. It's a woman. I've never played a woman in anything. So I took it on. And
who was she?
Her name was Janet West. I'm not sure if that's the real person's name or I didn't want to officially use her name. I can't remember, but it might have been her real name. She was the mother of a son who was at the Gulf War.
Oh, wow.
So I just created this whole background about her and, if she was to present and have a conversation with, an audience. And I dressed up as her for Halloween that year. And we were at a party and people were like, this one couple in particular was like, who are you? Who are you supposed to be? And I told them, this character. And they still didn't quite get it or see a reason for doing that. But St. John and I just thought it was hilarious,
That's awesome.
It's like, does it really matter,
Oh, it's like, who do you want to be, right? Who recognizes you. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so next Halloween, Paul, we got to talk about who we're going to be.
All right.
One other thing I want to say about Tracy O'Connor is her amazing hairdo. So she has her hair curled, just these single curls just framing her face, like almost like a little helmet of these curls. And it's just so 70s. But she looks so great with it. I mean, I think it's like a very, very dated hairdo, but she rocks it. I love it on her. It's awesome.
I've seen women in bands with that hairdo.
Oh, I bet. Got to be making a comeback now.
Yeah. Like I saw Chan Marshall from Cat Power.
She had that look?
Oh, maybe not quite. Hers is more straight.
Okay.
It wasn't curled. And that was years ago, though. Yeah, her covers tour. But I feel like I've seen someone like that, like in a band.
Yeah. It makes sense that it would make a resurgence. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So Dale leaves Tracy in the house and he takes off. To the next scene is at the art exhibit, and it's on La Cienega Boulevard. This is West Hollywood near Melrose Avenue. Does that sound right to you, Paul?
The gallery?
Mm-hmm. La Cienega, is that only in West Hollywood or does that go all over the town?
I know the name, but yeah, it probably goes north and south, so you're definitely probably there.
Mm-hmm. So I looked up the address, again, using this map that is on the Columbo File website. They have this cool little map. So the address, 653 North La Cienega Boulevard, it actually looks like the original building is still standing, which is pretty cool considering this is like 50 years ago. But now it's a clothing store.
Oh, wow.
I was going to say it's cool that it's still there 50 years later. It was a pretty dramatic building with the really tall glass windows, like maybe 2 stories worth of glass windows, and then these thin columns in front of the windows.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember seeing it because they show a daytime shot when Columbo goes there. Oh, what's the address again?
It's 653 North La Cienega Boulevard.
Yeah, things change pretty rapidly in LA that I've noticed, in terms of stores. So
it's definitely not an art gallery. Not that maybe it ever was, but I think the original building is still there with a beautiful glass front, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to linger on this scene just a minute because this is an awesome scene. As you know, I love these big party scenes with lots of people and all the 70s garb. Champagne. Yeah, this brings us to our drink and our snack. So it's an art gallery, an art opening for an artist named Sam Franklin. He's a young up-and-coming artist, and it's packed. And the champagne is flowing, and those cute, 60s champagne glasses that are real wide with the little stems.
Mm-hmm. There's smoking going on too.
Oh yeah.
Like if you look behind Ross Martin, you'll see clouds of smoke going up.
So much smoking in this episode. And there's somebody carrying a tray of appetizers, of little finger foods, and I tried to find out what exactly is the appetizer. And so I was freezing the frame and I couldn't quite figure out what they were carrying, but it was clearly like food on toothpicks, like different colors of food sort of squished together in little lines. So that's why our snack is appetizers on a toothpick. And I put on mine is tomatoes, olives, feta cheese in a little row to make a little like stripe of color.
Yeah, my wife, St. John, she tried to figure it out too. She was thinking sushi, but that might have been the 60s might have been too early for sushi in LA. Yeah. Maybe not. I don't know. She kept having to freeze frame as well.
I was doing the same thing. I was like freeze framing, and then there was a different shot in a different room. But anyhow, let me just talk about a couple of the wonderful outfits. So Matilda, who owns the art gallery, is hosting this event. She's like the main person in this scene, and she is wearing this wonderful lavender pink shimmering muumuu type dress. It's actually a little bit transparent, so you can actually see her bra and her like shorts underneath, but it's just very pink and silver, and it's got these like silver grape looking shapes all over it. And then she has these really big earrings with diamonds and purple gems. She just looks fabulous. And throughout the gallery, you see a lot of people just wearing very bright clothes and looking very 70s. It's a really fun scene. So anyone who hasn't slowed down through that scene. You should really go back, savor that scene, check out all the outfits. There's someone in like a little halter top and tiny shorts, and there's someone in like a fully beaded evening gown. It's pretty awesome. It's a really good scene for all the visuals.
Yeah, and the artwork too. The artwork is the different things that he talks about. The hanging one. What do you call that? I forget what you call that.
Like a mobile?
Yeah,
or mobile?
The mobile. I did a workshop with an artist, Sterling Ruby, who's a very popular artist. He and his wife held a workshop at LACMA, and we all had to build mobiles.
Oh, that's awesome.
But also the first thing that you see, it's like that circular, what was that? It's $5,000. It's like the first scene of the gallery. It's like this big circular.
You mean like that geodesic dome, like multicolored dome? That thing is so cool. I really like that part.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Because it spins and the camera's like right in it. It looked really cool.
I love that. That's like the entrance to this whole scene is this crazy, like spinning geodesic dome. It's really, really cool. And I do want to point out, so I know there's a lot of cool costumes going on, but another main costume is Sam Franklin, the artist, and he is dressed like a hippie, a stereotypical hippie of the 70s. He's got like pretty worn jeans and some Birkenstock sandals. His shirt is unbuttoned a bit of the waist down, and it's like really big purple and teal paisleys.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, do you remember him from the sitcom Alice?
No.
Yeah, so there's a movie called Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, starring Ellen Burstyn, and she may have won an Oscar for that. I'm not positive, but Martin Scorsese directed it, yeah.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah, but they turned it into a sitcom, very different. But he was in both. He was in the movie, and then he was in the sitcom, and he was the main head chef of Mel's Diner. I think it was called Mel's Diner. But his saying would always be like, "That's enough, dingy." Like he was always talking to one of the main characters who's kind of ditzy, and he would be like, "Come on, dingy, we got orders to do." so he's always like this gruff, character, kind of like in this episode.
Yeah, he's gruff in this episode too. That's a good word for him.
Yeah.
Did that come out after this? This is 1971.
Yeah.
So is that?
I think it was like the 80s.
Okay.
And Matilda did a lot of really cool films too. I just looked her up. She's worth looking at her. She was in Some Like It Hot.
Okay. Marilyn Monroe, right?
Mm-hmm. And then she was in The Apartment, which is another one with Jack Lemmon, which is a lot of people's favorite films.
He's a comedy actor, right?
Yeah, both of those were dramedies, but mostly comedy. Yeah, she was in the Abbott and Costello Show. But you can tell she has that, not quite like Shelley Winters, but she was great as the owner, that she owns this. Well, I do think when she's acting with The Hangover, she has a hangover. I didn't think she was that convincing. It's the only time I thought it was like she was just sort of dialing it in,
Yeah, she wasn't quite hangover-y enough.
She's saying the right things and acting the right things, but it wasn't feeling truthful to me.
Okay.
She should have drank a bunch before she got on set the night before.
Actually hungover for that scene is what you're saying.
Exactly. No, just kidding.
Maybe she's never been hungover. She doesn't know what it feels like.
I doubt that.
I know, right? Gosh.
But it could have been the director, Hy Averback. He probably has gotten drunk, so who knows?
Who knows?
Maybe they had little time in that scene.
Yeah, they had to just get through it. They were running out of days for shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so Dale's there in his crushed velvet suit. And then during this scene, it kind of flashes back to the uncle's house where his uncle's body lies. And Tracy, the girlfriend, is setting up Dale's alibi for him because she is so loving. So she waits until midnight, I guess, fires a gun. I don't know what time it is, but it's clearly after Dale has arrived. Fires the gun into the air. There's a security guard making rounds in this neighborhood. And she also, of course, gets rid of the electric blanket. And while she's doing this work, you see Dale at the art gallery continuing to charm everybody with his stories and his insights into art.
What did you think of what he says in those scenes? You know how he says something and then he laughs really hard after each time?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. I mean, It's definitely brings some comedy to this moment. He's really trying to charm everybody. What about you? What did you think?
I got it, but I just felt like they were just getting drunk. Like when he talked about the mobiles and the space in between,
Yeah.
what we're really talking about, I kind of got, but I'm a little slow too. So
Here's my bigger picture thought about Dale is that he does not have the charm of a lot of these Columbo villains. Well, maybe not a lot of them, but some of the Columbo villains really have a bit more charm, and there's something about them that you like. And with Dale, I never really got that. So, he's trying to charm everybody at the art gallery with his insights, and they're all laughing loudly. But it feels hollow, right? And I think that, I don't know if that was a decision on purpose or if that's just how he portrayed the character, but he doesn't ever actually come across as really charming, even though he's trying so hard to be that.
yeah, I think that might be it, because this episode has a lot of funny stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
The artist is kind of funny when Columbo comes in there and the woman's nude. The landlady towards the end was hilarious.
Gosh,
Looking
I love her.
We'll get to that. But so the director, Hy Averback, who is an actor, he also did a lot of acting, like in radio and announcing. Like he was the announcer in MASH, and he directed a lot of MASH's.
Oh, wow.
MASH episodes. He did a Murder, She Wrote episode as well.
Oh, that's cool.
I think you're right. I think that's what they were trying to do to these scenes, because they're not that funny.
Mm-hmm.
And he's always looking at his watch, but everybody recognizes him from TV. So they're enamored with him.
Totally. Yeah, I didn't even think about that part. He's like a mini celebrity to them. So they're going to laugh loudly at whatever he says, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
Because I watched it again, and I liked watching it more the second time, and I was trying to see what's funny about what he's saying.
You're like, not much. Not a lot.
Yeah, I was like, this is not funny. But I think that's the point.
Yeah. Well, so Tracy leaves the house. She gets into her cute little Volkswagen Bug convertible, and the security guard ends up finding Rudy's body. So then it kind of cuts from Dale having fun to the next scene where the murder has been discovered. Everyone's at Rudy's mansion. Columbo's on the scene.
I was going to say one thing. I just caught this. Okay, this is weird. So when Dale Kingston goes up the stairs to get the electric blanket, you will see a painting on the wall of his uncle's house as he's going up the stairs in his uncle's house, to get the electric blanket. He comments about that painting at the gallery, and the same painting is behind him at the gallery.
Uh-oh.
But that might be intentional, because he makes a comment about masculinity. I forget the comment he says, but again, it's one of those things that was not funny to me. And if you think about it, he is one of these toxic males who doesn't think about anybody but himself.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a frightening dude.
Yes.
I really liked Tracy O'Connor. Like, I thought she was awesome. Not what she did, of course, but that, she's this young, struggling artist. So that's, it's terrible what she did, and that she would have to rely on him. But, he's much older than her, and, she looked up to him, kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. Oh, that's so interesting that you caught that painting thing. Oh, I see it now. Okay, I just rewatched that moment there. Very interesting. So anyhow, Columbo's at the house where the murder has occurred. And of course, he's never exactly on task, quote unquote, on task, sort of murder scenes. Although he is, right? He's using his other sixth sense to figure things out. But he's really interested in the art, and he's looking at everything. And Dale arrives and points out that it appears that 2 pastels by Degas are gone.
Mm-hmm.
They're dancing girls. And he says that they're worth at least $500,000. I didn't look up. I should have looked up what that is in today's money. But I did look up what are these pastels worth today. And I think it really, really varies. But I saw in a New York Times article from like 1999 or something that there was a Degas pastel of dancing girls that was estimated at around $30 million.
Wow.
For one. but not necessarily for these two.
Mm-hmm.
It's all super, super subjective. I have a friend who runs an art gallery, and this is one of the things about art galleries is that people often don't want to say what they paid for something or what something was sold for. It's kind of secretive, so it's hard to know. I think it's hard to find out what somebody paid for a particular piece of art. But anyhow, 2 of these Degas are gone, and they're very valuable. And so Columbo chats a little bit with Dale and starts to, in his very Columbo way, starts to point out some of his issues with this murder and asks Dale if he could tap his phone because
I love that.
I love that too. It's so good. Columbo's so smart. He knows right away who to narrow in on, right?
Yeah.
It's like instantly, this is the guy to narrow in on.
And I love the butler. And he's like, this butler is just causing more problems. Let's get this guy out here. Don't you want to go see your wife?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He's like, I know this guy couldn't have done it.
Yeah, get rid of this guy. Let's get to the real deal, guys, here. Was there anything else? Yeah, so I guess that's the last part of the scene is that Columbo tells Dale he'll tap his phone so that if the murderer who also stole the paintings calls to try to get a ransom, they'll have some record of that.
Yeah, and also just the thing that he does with like, hey, maybe you should check this out. I'm going to do something real quick. And he calls a security guard and he calls that woman in to walk with her high heels down the stairs. And he's like shouting the whole time, like, okay, go ahead. Like, did that sound like it? And then Dale Kingston says to him, he's like, what does all that prove? He's like, I forget all the words, but he's already getting a sense of Dale through this, let me see who he really is and his reactions to what I'm doing.
Yes, that's a really good point. That's like the genius of what he does, right? He does something or says something, and then he monitors, like, how is this person responding to this sort of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really good. So the next scene is Tracy O'Connor, the accomplice. She's at her apartment. It's the next day or maybe a couple days later, and she's trying to call Dale. She's stressed, clearly. And I love this moment because it's so 70s. She's wearing this floral house dress. She has the same hairdo with this like little curl framing her face.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, she's got a cigarette dangling from her fingers. And she has a bucket of ice on her bar. In her little apartment, she has a bar with a bucket of ice. And then she is putting ice into her scotch. So
I love that the bucket of ice has the Jack's cards all over it. That's so cool.
Yes, the bucket of ice is awesome. I love it. This whole moment, I just love it. And we also see in her background, she's got her paintings and things. But while she's trying to get a hold of Dale, we get a glimpse of Dale's apartment. Even though he doesn't pick up the phone or anything, we hear the phone ringing and we see his apartment, which is super cool. I was actually wondering if St. John, your wife, had ideas, because I know she knows a lot about furniture, but it's really pretty cool, like kind of that futuristic or like space agey 70s furnishings.
You know what? I wrote that down to ask St. John about his chair, but I never asked her. We watched it together today, and I forgot to ask her.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah, it's a really cool apartment. So any listener who hasn't seen that moment, you had to go back and kind of freeze frame and check out Dale's apartment. It's really, really cool. It's got these like plastic chairs, like see-through, clear, dark plastic chairs that match this table. And this olive green chair that we'll get back to, that Columbo is sitting in later. But anyhow, it's just a cool little glimpse into Dale's apartment. So Tracy does not get a hold of him on the phone with her cigarette dangling and her scotch on the rocks. So she goes back to her painting. And she's painting these really bright, colorful houses. And then we cut to the next scene back at Matilda's art gallery. Again, this is like the day after the murder has occurred. And this is the scene that you were talking about, sort of comedy scene. So Sam Franklin, the artist who was wearing a paisley shirt, is now wearing this little tank top, very 70s tank top. And he's painting a woman into one of his paintings. So he had this painting of like a cactus plant, and now he's adding a naked woman into it. And Columbo shows up to the art gallery. He wants to find out what time Dale arrived.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love Columbo's reaction, Peter Falk's reaction when he walks into and sees the nude.
Yes.
So great.
Yeah, I thought he did a really good job. It's so convincing where he walks in to Sam Franklin's workspace to find out what time Dale arrived. And as soon as he walks in, he realizes there's a naked woman in here. He's so obviously uncomfortable. I thought he did a really good job there.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to point out that he walked through this beaded curtain. And I love that part. It was very bohemian, like every strand of beads was a different color. Those things I think they're making a comeback, Paul. So if you're on the market for a beaded curtain, you should buy one sooner than later. So I think they're only going to get more expensive.
One funny thing, too, is the gallery owner, played by Joan Shawley, she's ashing on her own floor.
Yes.
While Columbo's talking to Vic Tayback's Sam Franklin, she's just ashing on the floor, shaking her head.
I saw that. That was awesome. But yeah, like you were saying, this is a scene where maybe she doesn't appear as hungover as she should be, maybe.
Oh, when she shouts to him, like I forget where it is. Maybe she's shouting to the guy who takes the cars, or
the parking attendant.
I can't remember. Yeah, it's right in here. It's either before or after, and she's just like, I got a hangover. I forget what she says.
Too much of the bubbly.
Yeah.
Or too much of the grape.
And she's like he's back there. She's talking about the painter that he's back there painting, and her reaction, I mean, that's what people would do, but it just doesn't feel truthful.
Yeah, totally. She wasn't as convincing as you would hope.
At the party, she killed it. Just that little moment there, that's all.
Yeah, totally. I get that. Yeah, so Columbo is there to check on Dale's alibi, and the parking attendant, confirms that what time he arrived, and that he got a $2 tip. And Columbo's like, "What? You got $2?" Do you have any guess as to what a $2 tip is worth in today's money, Paul? I did a little Google on it.
Well, a $2 tip
in 1971.
Now for a beer is, well, not now, but I remember a song by Got an Extra Six Pack for a $2 tip. I forget the dudes who wrote the song. What is it, $15?
Close, yeah, very close. It's about $13.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a good tip, but maybe not as good as Columbo reacts. Columbo's like, whoa! It's like $100 tip or something.
Yeah.
You gotta love that about him, though. He's easily impressed because he doesn't have a lot of money. So Okay, so Columbo verifies the alibi. And then the next scene is of Tracy's television set. So Tracy's at home. She's watching Dale on the TV. So he's an art critic, which I think we mentioned. And he has a TV show where he talks about art. So she's watching his TV show. And in this episode, he's talking about Goya. This is a scene where I was like, oh, I want to wear that for Halloween. She's wearing this really pretty, it's not even that crazy, but it's just like very 70s, very pretty yellow floral blouse.
Oh yeah, with all the buttons on the sleeve.
Yeah. So the cuffs are extra big. They're like oversized cuffs with like 5 buttons on them, and then the sleeves are kind of oversized, kind of like a pirate shirt. So they're gathered at the cuff. They're kind of extra floofy. But it's just very 70s, very blousy. So Tracy's watching him on TV. She's probably smoking again, although I don't remember.
She is.
Yeah, there you go. Smoking in her little apartment. So she calls the TV station to get a hold of him because she's so anxious about the murder and she really wants to be reassured. So Dale's on the phone. He picks up and he's like, hello. And she's like, oh, Dale, And he's like, why are you calling me? He's very cold, he's like just a jerk. And he's very cold towards her. And he's like, don't call me. It's going to be okay. And then while he's having this conversation, Columbo walks onto the studio stage and Dale is like, no, I'm not interested or whatever. He kind of hangs up on her right when Columbo approaches him because he doesn't want to get caught, talking to his accomplice or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason he is upset that she calls, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that was in another Columbo, too, that we saw recently.
Yes. Which one?
Yeah, which one was that? Yeah.
But yeah, this has happened before.
It's interesting, though, that he is talking about Goya, because Goya had he says, you take away the W and wart, and what do you have? You have art. So Goya did those, grotesque, people, and, that's exactly what Dale Kingston is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like defending himself.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, I looked up Goya just very briefly. But yeah, it was kind of dark. His art was kind of dark. Interesting.
Yeah, like Satan devouring his son has a picture of this huge Goyle eating looks like a small human.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a lot of violent stuff too, sort of showing what war does to people.
Ugh. Yeah, wow. I just saw the Satan devouring his son. That's pretty gross. It must have been fun when they were putting this episode together to think about what would be a good artist to be referenced in this moment,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think that Richard Levinson and William Link, who were the creators and the producers, they were always looking at the directors and the writers. And there was an interview with Stephen Bochco,
mm-hmm.
who became a huge producer himself. He was one of the story editors on this. He said he would hear Peter Falk and I guess it was Levinson and Link, like arguing, so it was like, I think that they all worked so hard, trying to make the best thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched an interview with Kim Hunter, who plays Edna Matthews, the aunt.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she said, working with Peter Falk was just that. He was so close to the material. She said he was a pleasure to work with because he knew the character inside and out, and he, knew the story, where it was going. So he wanted everybody else to have that kind of fun, and the amount of work that you put in when you have it down, then you can really have fun. Once you've done the work, then you can take it even further, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she felt that with him on this episode.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Where was that interview?
You can find William Link interviews too. I can send you some links. We can post it on our thing too. But yeah, you can find a lot of stuff they're like 3 hours long. I didn't watch all of her interview.
Yeah, that's a long one.
But they're all pretty long. You can find pieces on YouTube, but if you go straight to Television Academy interviews, and you'll find the full thing. You'll hear a phone ring in the background and they'll cut,
Oh, cool.
The William Link one, you should check out. A lot of these actors are, they're Academy Award winners. Kim Hunter won an Oscar for Streetcar Named Desire because she was, it was her,
wow.
Marlon Brando. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I knew you would have some good info on the actors, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm not going to do much digging on the actors because Paul is going to know these people.
Yeah, and incidentally, Rosanna Huffman, who plays Tracy O'Connor, she was married to Richard Levinson, the co-creator of Columbo. That's his wife. And so she was in another Columbo episode, and she was in Murder, She Wrote years later. But she did a lot of television.
Well, no wonder her whole look was so amazing. I mean... Gosh, they must have been like, it's Link's wife. Don't mess this up. It's got to be hip. It's got to be slick. Which is the other Columbo episode, Paul? I don't remember her.
The other episode, let's see, was Rest in Peace, Mrs. Columbo.
Oh, okay.
1990. Okay. Wow, so that'll be fun to watch.
Yeah. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen any of the new ones. Maybe one of the new ones.
Yeah. I've seen one or two of the new ones, but yeah.
She was like in 7 episodes of Murder, She Wrote.
Awesome. So when we get through all of the Columbos, Paul, we might have to do some of the Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah, let's do it.
It'll be our next one or something else, some other shows, movies.
She was in an Ellery Queen episode, and which is also created by Richard Levinson and William Link.
I don't know that show at all. Ellery Queen?
Ellery Queen, yeah. Mom and Dad used to watch that, yeah. So Ellery Queen was it's a pseudonym for two writers that influenced Richard Levinson and William Link. But that's how this writer published those books, I believe. But that was made into a TV series. But they loved those books.
Okay.
The Ellery Queen books. And so William Link says, I saw an interview where he said John Dixon Carr, who was a mystery writer, John Dixon Carr and Ellery Queen were their university.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, I'll have to check those out. Ellery Queen. And we'll have to add that to our show notes. I'm going to make a note here.
Those are lighter.
Yeah.
They're more like, I've only watched one recently. I remember Mom and Dad watching them. Very different. I don't like them as much as Columbo. I'll have to watch another one, though. I've only watched one in the past 30 years.
All right, so back to the scene in the TV studio. Columbo shows up, causes Dale to hang up on Tracy, and they chat for a bit. Columbo has a watercolor painting that Sam Franklin has done of a purple horse, and he has rented it, and which I love. He didn't buy it, of course. He's rented the painting. He wants to show it to Dale, get his opinion. Dale's like, that looks like trash.
Mm-hmm. Good for a kid's room.
Yeah, good for a kid's room. And Columbo says, that's kind of what I was worried about, but I don't understand why you would go to this person's showing, right? So he's starting to kind of give some clues as to his, what he's thinking about or whatever. He gets paid to write reviews, and he generally gets paid to write negative reviews. So that's why he went to this particular showing. But I love in this scene, the last thing I wanted to mention from this scene was that Columbo is saying he's been hoping to stop by his apartment. He's never there. And Dale's like, you want to check out my apartment? I have nothing to hide. You just go. Here's the key. You go anytime you want. And Columbo's like, oh, no. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
This scene, this was the battle of wits between them and sort of the juiciness that Ross Martin gives and acting really upset. I'm feeling his truthfulness. Like, I love this scene. Their acting I thought was wonderful. And he's like, you got me all wrong, Peter Falk says to him. But yeah, this was the first one that really I loved.
Yeah, I really loved it too. I love that moment and where Columbo is like, okay, I'll take it. And then speechless. He's like, oh, crap.
Why did I do that?
It's a really good moment. Really good moment. Yeah, I love that. There's a lot of those little juicy moments in here in this episode.
He's, like, you got nothing on me, man.
Mm-hmm.
But he's still mad. He's still mad.
Yeah, he does not like feeling implicated or having to feel defensive about anything. He's like, how could you? I'm untouchable. Like, how could you make any kinds of insinuations towards me? Mm-hmm. So I was saying that was the only other thing I wanted to mention about this scene. I forgot about the coffee vending machines, Paul. Mm-hmm. Did you notice the coffee vending machines?
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah. I bet the coffee was terrible.
Probably really bad. They're just beautiful. They just say like coffee, like utilitarian, they're like coffee. And they're these big beige vending machines with very little, salesy information, no bright colors, no big brand names.
Mm-hmm. And when he puts his coffee under there, all of a sudden it's made, like there was no time for it to pour.
Oops.
I remember those kinds of machines in Munich when we lived there as kids. Yeah, I remember that kind of stuff. Yeah, they had some stuff like that.
That's awesome. I feel like if I have memories, they're probably like implanted from TV shows. Mm-hmm. If I don't have any genuine memories of those, but they seem really cool.
Yeah.
Trench coat, cigar, latte jaune. Columbo,
right, so the next scene, Tracy and Dale are going to meet up together so that Tracy can give Dale the paintings that she took. And they're going to meet on like a dirt road up in the hills, the Los Angeles hills. And Dale is driving a really nice, large, vintage Mercedes-Benz. At first I thought it was a Rolls-Royce, but then there's a scene where you can see the Mercedes logo on the back.
Mm-hmm.
And Tracy's got her cute little Volkswagen Bug convertible. And she's wearing a pretty similar outfit to the first scene. She's wearing another tight, long turtleneck sweater with a belt worn real low around her hips.
Mm-hmm.
This turtleneck sweater is baby blue. She's got her same hairdo. And this is a scene where, so she gives Dale the paintings and she's like, when am I going to see you again? And then he murders her. We don't actually see it. I just want to say that I thought that she did a really nice job in this scene of, there's like moments where they're at the car and they're exchanging the paintings and she seemed really earnest and genuine towards him.
Yeah, I felt bad for her. I was like, this dude's evil, like it's like, no. He's like, yes. Evil. She's like, is there anything wrong? I forget what she says, but you love me, don't you? And he's just like, yes, it's going to be fine. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, it is sad how she's just so like trusting and earnest. And he's just a cold-blooded murderer, basically. Yeah, it's sad. I thought her performance was really good.
Yeah, because she turns around. She just can't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's got the big Brock.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. I don't know. I was thinking when I was rewatching this, like I know there have been other episodes where the villain kills more than one person, but I couldn't remember offhand. It's not super common in these Columbos where they kill like more than one person, thankfully. But yeah, this is one of those episodes, obviously. Well, the next scene, moving on here, is back at Dale's apartment. So he's murdered his girlfriend. He's returning to his home. He might have done some other things in between. So it's dark. It's getting to be dark now. And according to this Columbo file map, this apartment is at 882 North Doheny Drive. So I looked it up. It looks the same, Paul.
Really?
Yes, it's crazy. He's walking home to this white brick wall around like an apartment complex. And then there's a black metal gate that he's going to unlock. And it looks the same. I think it's the same thing, at least on the fence. It's pretty cool, at least on the exterior part.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because St. John loves that gate. Yeah, she was talking about that.
Yeah, it was cool. So he goes home, lets himself into his house, and he finds Columbo asleep in his apartment on one of his chairs. This scene is just awesome. And we were already talking about Dale's furniture a bit, but the chair that Columbo fell asleep in is really cool. Like I had to freeze frame on this. It's like an olive green armchair. And I was trying to figure out, is there a name for that type of chair? It's definitely a mid-century chair. What I was finding online is that maybe it's a womb chair is the name for this style of chair. So it's kind of like you're sitting in a womb, basically.
Yeah. My wife, St. John, she used to sell those in Chicago at Luminaire, which was like the original modern art, modern furniture store. Like they have Design Within Reach now, which is kind of a chain. But I'm pretty sure they had the womb chair at Luminaire in Chicago.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, it's a really pretty chair. Very like sleek and simple curves. Columbo's asleep in it. And when he gets up, he looks very rumpled and tired. He does a good job of convincing me, at least, that he was actually asleep in that chair.
Oh, yeah, me too.
So Dale walks in. He's got some paintings in one of these like artist carrying case type things. First of all, Dale's annoyed, right? He's like, what are you doing here? And Columbo apologizes. And then Columbo asks, can I see what you brought home? And he sticks his hand into Dale's painting carrying case thing. And Dale's like, no, I'm exhausted. You've got to go. Yeah, so he really has to like put his foot down there.
Mm-hmm. You can see his coat and his pants that he usually don't see that.
The wrinkles.
Peter Falk's coat. He doesn't have his trench coat on. He has like just a regular coat.
Yeah. He's more in his inner layer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Is there anything else about that scene that you wanted to mention, Paul?
I just thought it was funny, like him being apologetic and sort of charming him at the very end. Like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I'll go. First he's gonna bust him, right? Because he's like, oh, he's gonna go for my paintings. But then it's like he gets a call, because there's a dead person on the highway. So it had some humor in there. I thought it was really funny, his reactions with him.
Yeah, it's a good scene. The two of them together, it's convincing. So the next scene, so like you mentioned that Columbo gets a call about a car accident. Turns out it's the art student we hear more about in the next scene, which is the reading of the will. And we finally meet Edna, which is the victim's ex-wife, but current partner. And she's an interesting character. Paul, I don't know, you talked a little bit about her. She plays this very like bubbly and sort of a little bit goofy, a little bit airheaded individual. And she's wearing this very classy purple suit with a matching silk purple blouse. But I like that she doesn't let Columbo get a word in when they are talking to each other at this next scene where they're going to read the will together. She just kind of goes on, and Columbo can't quite figure out how to cut her off, how to interrupt.
Yeah. When I first saw it, I was like, wasn't sure about her character. But watching it again, I liked her performance even more because she really fits this kind of potentially, messed up person that Dale could frame, right? Mm-hmm. And so I thought she did a great job when she was talking about when she first meets Columbo and she says they're walking into the lawyer's place. There's a couple times where I felt like she looked at the camera. Mm-hmm. And she wasn't like looking at like, oh, there's a camera. But it's this thing with acting that you don't think about it and you just perform. So I think it's just her performing and just continuing. Mm-hmm. But she's so funny. Yeah, she doesn't let him get a word in. And she just keeps going on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And it sort of fits this sort of kooky character. If you watch her before they go into the lawyer's office, she does this thing where she looks right into the lens.
Okay.
And she turns and when I've done acting, it's something where you just like, you don't want to do that, even though people do it all the time. And it doesn't really mean a lot, but sort of sometimes it does. It's like because your eyes will go right to it. And you try not to do that as a performer because then you sort of acknowledge that you're being filmed. Like it's immediate. Like you can see the reaction within the actor. It's kind of weird. I don't know if that always shines through, but performers and actors sometimes always talk about the eyes.
Yeah.
Sometimes what's going on underneath in their performance and stuff. Even blinking. Like I edited a film recently where they didn't want this actor to, like, if we could cut down on their blinks. And so they wanted us to slow down the blinking by doing like a visual effect. So you didn't see his blinking. And then actor friend of mine the other weekend, we met up and, did a sort of a 6 feet apart kind of thing. We were just talking and he had mentioned Ryan Gosling. He's like, look at him. He never blinks. It was like a compliment,
Wow.
I noticed that with me performing sometimes that I do blink a lot and maybe it registers that I'm unsure, perhaps.
Interesting.
And you want to have confidence, obviously, as an actor and your character and your believability. I don't know if that always signals unconfidence, but some people obviously read it as that. So that's kind of getting away from her performance coming in the elevator.
No, but that's such an interesting tidbit about blinking. I had never thought about that or noticed that.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though. I didn't notice Edna looking to camera either. So I want to watch that again.
Yeah, I noticed it the first time. And then the other night, I noticed it again. I think those are the only spots with her performance. It's just a technical thing, Mm-hmm. It's kind of like when you redo a scene, they have a continuity person to make sure that your hands are in the same place,
Oh, right. Yeah.
So some performers now, like there's one actor I really like, but I watched a series he was doing and I noticed he doesn't move at all. And I was kind of bummed because it's just kind of boring. And I'm thinking like, is he just not want to have to deal with getting his hands right each time?
Yeah.
So I really like Kim Hunter as Edna Matthews and Don Ameche too, the lawyer.
Yeah.
His reading of the will is great.
Yeah, this scene is a good scene. I like Don Ameche too. And one thing, before they get into the will, Columbo is asking. Like we said already, he was informed of the death of this art student in a car accident. And next day, he's at the reading of the will, and he has a painting by this student, Tracy O'Connor, to show to Dale. And he is also has a photo of Tracy, and he asks Dale, do you recognize this person? And in this moment, he's so cold. He just is like laughing. This person has just died. Even if, he wants to pretend he doesn't know her, he's so cold. He's like, how could I possibly know this? There's so many art students in Los Angeles. How could I possibly know this one? Anyhow, it's just like another insight into this character.
And he says like her painting's trash or something like that.
Yeah.
It's almost like, what was his end goal, right? In life? Like he just wants those pieces.
Yeah. Like how much money does he need? He has some pretty nice furnishings in his apartment on Bikini Drive. But apparently that's not enough for him.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, just playing around. Maybe he was like a failed artist who became an art critic or something. But because he seems to like, he hated his uncle. Obviously, he mentioned something about him having no feelings to Tracy in the very beginning.
Yeah,
and it's almost like maybe he's just a born evil person or was never loved. I mean, you just don't know, like because the art Goya seemed to bring him joy. Talking about, but that's kind of like one of the few things. Maybe this being a celebrity at the party, he enjoyed that too, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good point, though. One other thing in this reading of the will, we learn that the Uncle Rudy gave the whole art collection to Edna instead of to Dale. So that's a pretty big blow. And we learn that he also gave the housekeepers an annual allowance. I didn't write down the number. Maybe it was like $2,000. I forget what it was. Okay. So in today's money, that's only like $13,000. So I don't know where that would make, a big impact. It seems pretty stingy to me.
Well, if they didn't, that was more than minimum wage.
Is $13,000 a year more than a minimum wage?
It was a year. It wasn't a week?
No, it was a whole year.
That wouldn't make sense.
That was a whole year.
That was a whole year?
It was like $2,000 for the year. And today's money, that would be like $13,000. I'm pretty sure. I hope I got that right. I thought it was for the year.
No, you're probably right. That wouldn't make sense, right? $2,000 for the week at
or even time? The month. That would be pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to point out the housekeeper has a little black pillbox hat, which I love. We need to bring back the pillbox hat, Paul. How do we make that come back?
Halloween.
I got a lot of costume options for next year. So they finish reading the will, and it kind of disperses, and the lawyer, Don Ameche, and Columbo chat privately, and the lawyer he's pretty sexist towards Edna. He's like, how could, he tries to be very non-judgmental and neutral, but in the end he ends up saying, like, I don't understand how Rudy would give this flighty person this kind of control. This is the thing about some of these shows in the 70s, like her whole portrayal was pretty stereotypical, right? She plays she does a good job, but she plays kind of a ditzy person, which is stereotypical female for the era of where she's easily flustered and, not focused and just sort of airheaded. But then in this moment, the lawyer also reinforces that about her.
Yeah, her character, I guess, that's how they want her to be. I know the writer was Jackson Gillis. Do you feel they're strong women and more than average, you think? Or is it just kind of limited because of the time?
No, it's interesting. We do have some pretty strong women who are murderers.
Yeah, like Lee Grant.
Yes, she's amazing. She's so good. And then some of the characters that we've talked about, maybe they're not like primary characters, but the woman in, was it Prescription Murder in the first episode, who played the girlfriend.
Yeah, so that would be similar to this one.
Yeah. Yes, but she survives, and she's very strong. She does a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think there are definitely moments where the female character does a really good job. And then in later episodes, there are other strong female characters. Yeah. I don't know that this portrayal is any reflection on Link and Levinson as much as what was just happening at the time, right? Because they definitely have some women in this series who are portrayed like as strong characters, strong individuals with their own personalities and their own internal compass. Yeah, in this episode, although I like her portrayal, she's not, necessarily any kind of role model for women. She's kind of, she's a little bit of a disappointment in terms of being a role model.
I do think that Richard Levinson and William Link, the stuff that they produced was really strong, and they were very verbal and vocal, I think, about accepting homosexuals. Mm-hmm. They created a TV show where there was an African-American was the main detective. I've wanted to get a hold of that. I forget the name of it, but you can look on their IMDb and you'll see it. It ran for, I think, a whole season.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and they did one TV movie with Hal Holbrook, and I think the son is gay, or maybe one of the men are gay. I forget what, but it was advocating, trying to make acceptance of people who are gay, like it was like a positive, big budget Hollywood thing. And then also, the way they show violence, and then trying to think of something else in terms of rights. I think William Link wanted to do for a long time, and I think they made it was a movie about a person who objected to war and went to jail for it. I forget what it is. I'll have to revisit that again. But if you find interviews with William Link, he seemed to be ahead of his time in working with millions of dollars of a company's money, making stories. He seemed to be, being in the. Not only was he entertaining and smart, what you're showing, I think he thought about it a lot.
That's awesome. That's good to know. Yeah, I'll be curious to see what else they created for sure.
Yeah, I'll try and order that series and send it to you if I get it. Because a lot of television stuff you can find online, like old stuff. Mm-hmm. But the more obscure stuff is harder to find.
Yeah, totally. This series as a whole doesn't have a lot of people of color in leading roles. But I think one of the themes that is really cool is this whole, like, Columbo is this underdog, this very humble civil servant who's constantly bringing down these, like, very wealthy, powerful people. So there's that theme, which I think is really cool. And there are, like I mentioned, there are some female leads who are strong characters, not necessarily in this episode. Mm-hmm. In terms of what was happening at this era, they might be ahead of the curve a little bit for what they're creating. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to see the other work that they've done that is even more progressive than this, for sure. I mean, I still love this show. For its time, it's got a lot of really strong quality. I'm not like trying to badmouth this show.
No, I know. And yeah, if you can understand the times and, it's good to call it out, what were the problems, but also if you can see what was strong about it, what qualities it did have, that's what you pulls you back to it.
Mm-hmm, totally. Well, let's go back to the scene. So the will is read. Columbo learns that Dale does not inherit this amazing art collection, that actually Edna inherits this amazing art collection. And he really wants to catch up with Dale after the reading of the will to find out, like, oh my gosh, what are you thinking? What's happening? And so he does. This is one of those rare moments where we see Columbo running. I kind of love that. He's usually like so calm. He's like, the tortoise versus the hare. He's always the tortoise. Mm-hmm. And in this moment, he's like dashing through this courthouse or, corporate building, whatever it is, to try to catch up with Dale to see his reaction from learning that he did not inherit the art collection. And Dale is waiting for him in the lobby. And Dale says, I already knew. I learned 10 days ago or something that I was not going to inherit his collection. And so this throws Columbo for a loop. It's kind of fun to see this, he clearly knows from the very beginning that Dale is his guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he can't prove it. And then he gets this sort of curveball thrown at him where it's like, well, actually, Dale had no motivation because he's not going to inherit anything. And in this moment, we see that where Columbo's like, what? You're not going to inherit? Like, why would you do this if you're not going to inherit? And of course, we learn later on Dale's full scheme for how he could inherit. But it's kind of an interesting moment there where Columbo has to reassess what's happening.
Yeah. And again, this brings into that play of the interaction between when they were at the TV studio. And here, I forget what he says to Columbo here, but it's so good. Like, he's so PO'd at him, but he's also like, I'm right and you were wrong. And he's really quiet. Ross Martin is real quiet, but he has the energy behind his words. I love that. And when he walks away after he puts that back in his face, and Columbo, like you said, is stumped and thrown a curve, the music, Billy Goldberg's music is wonderful too. It does this, and he's just sitting there thinking, and he puts the cigar in his fingers or his mouth, and he's just like, whoa, what's happening? Why, is he the killer? It was really cool.
That's a good moment. Yeah, it's interesting you wrote down Dale's words, because I didn't write the words down, but I wrote down that he is very condescending and insulting. When Columbo catches up to him to get his take on what just happened, Dale is, he's pretty awful towards Columbo. It's good.
Yeah, he says, stop pestering me and find the real killer. Then music plays. Yeah, he's very quiet too, I wrote.
Yeah, it's a good moment. Okay, well now, Paul, we get to hang out with Tracy O'Connor's landlady. So I love this scene. This includes a landlady. I don't know that she gets an actual name in the credits, but her name is Mary Wicks or Wickies. Does that sound right?
Maybe Wick. I'm not sure. Yeah, I recognize her from so much stuff. But she was in Father Dowling Mysteries. Is that a William Levinson show?
Maybe. Let's see.
No, it's Dean Hargrove, Joel Steiger. But it's similar. She was on a lot. Yeah, I recognize her. Like, I've seen her a bazillion times. And she had this comedy stuff down. The rapport between them, looking at her bird Stewart. Doesn't he have a name? Stewart or
Walter.
something?
Walter.
Walter. Oh, yeah. Stewart.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's describe for our dear listener. So Columbo is at landlady's home. She should have a name, but I don't think she does. He's at her apartment to find out more about Tracy O'Connor and if she had a boyfriend who maybe was Dale. And they are standing in front of the bird cage with the bird Walter.
Walter.
I love this scene. This is my favorite scene of the show, for sure. The best scene of the whole episode. It's the two of them.
She killed it, right?
Oh my gosh, she is so good. She was so good. So they're standing in front of the bird cage, and she's so good that you're like, is she acting, or are we really in her apartment with her bird? She's like, please, Walter's not hungry. Why isn't Walter eating? Come on, Walter, talking to her bird. And Columbo's like, well, maybe he's not hungry. Even Columbo, who's like a brilliant actor, seems a little bit more stilted next to her. I mean, I gotta say, he does a great job too, but when you put them side by side, like, she is even more stellar, if that's possible. She's even more stellar.
Oh, she is. She steals that scene.
She totally steals the scene. She's so convincing. And
she lives right by Capitol Records.
Oh, she does still?
Yeah, there's a shot of the Capitol Records outside of the apartment complex. It's that circular building. And you can even see Capitol Records, but it's kind of hidden behind the telephone booth.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to go back. When we're done, I'm going to go back and see that. I was going to say that her appearance, not her acting or anything, but her appearance reminds me a little bit of Marge Simpson from The Simpsons, because her hair is a little bit high, a little bit tall, the do, And then she has this like thick beaded necklace, kind of like pearls, but they're golden. And then like really big earrings.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives off this Marge Simpson vibe to me. just her look. But her acting is way beyond Marge. She's great. So Columbo is there because he wants to find out, did Tracy O'Connor have a boyfriend? Maybe he can find proof that Dale Kingston actually knew Tracy, and maybe this landlady will have some proof. Maybe she will have seen him, or whatever. So Columbo is asking her what kind of person she, if she dated anybody. And this whole part is so good. I mean, I think Peter Falk does a really good job here too, because he's like, you're not being nosy. You're just, or maybe this is just the writing. I don't know. But he's saying, both of it works so beautifully in this scene. He's saying, you're not being nosy. You're not nosy. You just notice things. How could you not notice things?
And she says, like, you took her artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, it's like a slight accusation that he kept it.
Yeah.
I think she even says you kept her artwork. And then he's like, oh no, ma'am, that's evidence. Like he has to tell her that, no, he didn't keep it for himself. Because he's like, she was a good artist. And she's like, I know she was a good artist. You took her artwork.
Yeah, she's calling him out. Yeah, such a good scene. I wrote down the words she used to describe who Tracy did date. There was an actor fellow, and she makes a little like sideways glance.
Oh, yeah, brilliant.
And some beach types.
Uh-huh.
I love that. Beach types. What is that? She clearly does not think. Yeah, it's Elliot, my husband. She does not think highly of beach types. Oh, I love it. So then she's like, I have a photo of her most recent boyfriend. So he's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Let me see the photo. So she pulls out like 3 different photo albums of her shelf, which I love. He's like, oh God. And they sit down together. And this is where she's just, I mean, her genius is clear from the very beginning of this scene. But then in this moment where they're looking at the photo album together, it shines through even more. She's such a natural. She's so convincing. She makes Columbo look at all these photos of her family members, her nieces, her nephews, her neighbors. She's got little stories to tell.
And they talk over each other.
Yeah.
Which is very rare. Like especially then. I know Robert Altman, the film director who did MASH, he shortcuts, in lots of movies. When he was doing television, the producers was like, oh, this guy's a terrible director. He has people talking over each other. But here, it's just like you can hear everybody. So they were obviously miking everybody. But it works so good. And it's great watch that scene where she's showing them all the pictures and relatives. And
and it's so real. I mean, this isn't a soap opera, right? Where every moment is. This is more like real life where people do talk over each other. Yeah, it's so good. She has all these little lines. I just wrote down one. So she's making Columbo look at photos that are not Tracy O'Connor. And one of them is of her niece. And she says, I made her that dress. Isn't it nice? That's small. And she's like talking about how she sewed this dress for her niece. Yeah, anyhow, I love that. And then she finds the photo of Tracy O'Connor with the boyfriend that she was talking about, that Columbo thought would maybe be like a photo of Dale Kingston that would link them together. It's not. It's some other guy.
Did you notice her pink watch?
Yes, I did notice her pink watch.
So the strap is a lot like the artist has a black watch like that. So it's of the times. I just now noticed her watch just now.
No, I love that you noticed that. I totally noticed that too. I didn't write it down. I don't know why. Normally I write down all those little things. But when I saw her watch, I was like, oh my gosh, it's just like Sam Franklin's watch. Only his is, like you said, brown or black or something. So I wonder if they got like a discount. They got a little deal on.
Yeah, right.
Or
Probably.
maybe that was just really the look of the moment, like very popular.
Yeah, probably.
And I think that's a pretty good look. I would imagine. I mean, that look is back in style today. You could totally wear that in this day and age. All right, well, we're getting to the end here. So there's a very short scene where there's police officers that are still standing or hanging around the Uncle Rudy Matthews home they say they're trying to keep off the tourists. I don't know what that means exactly, but there's a cop.
Which part? Oh, right.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, the cops are still lingering around, and the gardener is there. And in this moment, they're just chit chatting, and then the gardener finds a gun in the bushes. And the gardener, did you recognize the gardener, Paul?
No, I didn't look him up.
I recognized him right away.
Was that Robert Loggia?
No, I recognized him for the wrong reasons.
Oh.
The next scene at Rudy Matthews' house in the garden.
Oh, Robert Shaw.
It's not Robert Shaw. It's Jack Nance, who was on Twin Peaks.
Wait, that's Jack Nance?
Yes! Isn't that crazy?
Are you sure?
Well, it's uncredited, so it says it's him, but let me go back. I'm in IMDb. If you go down to, because I was like, is that Gardner the same guy from Jaws, right? Because that's what I thought.
Oh, wow.
But according to IMDb, it's Jack Nance.
Wow, you're
right.
So
for the listener who doesn't know the name, because I didn't know the name Jack Nance, I just recognized his face from the wrong person. So my biggest connection is I love Twin Peaks. And he was in Twin Peaks. He has a partner who's this beautiful Asian American woman. I think maybe she has connections to China. And yeah, but Jack Nance, he's done a lot of things, I think.
Yeah. So he was Eraserhead, or he's the main character with the big hair.
That's right, Eraserhead.
And you want to hear something funny?
Yes, always.
This is a true story. When I woke up this morning, St. John looked at me and she goes, "You look like Eraserhead with that hair."
No.
Yeah.
Oh, Paul, what's happening?
And that's the next part on IMDb. It said he was the gardener in Columbo. The next one was Henry Spencer, Eraserhead. So he didn't work for 6 years, it looks like.
Oh, so he went from Columbo to Eraserhead? That's crazy.
And he was...
yeah, you're right. I see that.
Yeah, John Nance in that. That's a great movie.
Yes.
For the listeners who have not seen that, if you want to see something strange and surreal, it's actually very funny, too. Very funny, weird scenes.
You told me to watch that movie, or maybe I watched it with you, and I did. It's a great movie.
Yeah, he was in a lot of... He passed away... Oh, look, in Pasadena.
Jack Nance?
Yeah, he was in a lot of David Lynch films, but I think he was in a bar fight or something. It says Nance died suddenly and unexpectedly on December 30th, 1996 from an apparent internal head injury the morning after getting into a physical brawl at a donut shop with some rowdy patrons.
Oh, dang. What a way to go.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, he played some... oh, wow. It says his death was a result of a brawl in a parking lot outside a Winchell's Donut store in South Pasadena near his apartment building during the early morning hours of December 29th, 1996.
You live in South Pasadena, right? Or near there?
We're right up. Yeah, we're just a block up from there. Yeah, that's by Highland, kind of like by Highland Park too. I think that Winchell's Donuts. But
wow, crazy. Jack Nance, rest in peace. I rewatched Twin Peaks. Maybe it was last year or something. It came back online. Where was it? It was either Netflix or Prime, because we don't have a TV, we don't have cable. So it was one of those two. And I loved Twin Peaks growing up. Paul, when you were out of the house, you were like all grown up, college and beyond, and I was at home in high school. Twin Peaks was like my absolute favorite show in high school. I never missed it.
Mm-hmm.
So I recognized him from that. And so I started rewatching it. Actually didn't quite finish.
Did you like it as much?
I did. I loved it. Yeah, just as much. But once they figured out who killed Laura Palmer, which is the whole plot, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's still some loose ends. So the show goes on. But like once that end happened, I've kind of lost interest. Mm-hmm. I need to go back, and there's still some really good stuff. So I need to like finish the whole series out. But the main part is the solving the murder at the very beginning of who killed Laura Palmer. And once that happened, I guess I got a little distracted.
Mm-hmm.
I love that show. Anyhow, that's the gardener. So
he looks so
short
different.
Scene.
I'm just like looking at it.
I know, right? I swear he looks way more like the boat captain from Jaws.
Are we 100% sure this is him? I'm just looking at it and it like does not look like.
Well, that is what IMDb says. I feel like it could be the boat captain from Jaws.
Well, Robert Shaw at this point, I think, was like a lead actor maybe already.
No, not Robert Shaw. Oh, yeah, you're right. That is Robert Shaw. Yeah, you're right. Robert Shaw. Because this movie came out. Oh, yeah, he died in 1978. It's not likely he'd play a gardener in 1971 after doing Jaws. Jaws came after. Jaws came in 1975. Maybe they confused Robert Shaw for Jack Nance. Do you think that's possible?
It's not Robert Shaw. I can tell you that.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't even look like that. I'm looking at it now. It does not look like Jack Nance.
Well, it's somebody.
This is the real mystery of the show. Who is the gardener?
This is the mystery. Who is the gardener? Is it really Jack
Because I'm
Nance?
looking at his nose. Is there another gardener in this episode?
Mm-mm. Nope. It's just that one moment at the tree with the cop.
Because when he turns around, he says, "Hey," and I'm looking at like his nose looks very different.
Hey, it's not validated. It's totally possible.
Maybe he auditioned for it.
It's an error.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll get to that mystery. We'll solve that one of these days.
Okay. Well, we are getting near the end here. The cop talks to the gardener. They find the gun, and this leads Columbo to Edna, who lives just under or like kind of below Rudy's home where the gun was found. And her address is also on that map I've been talking about from the Columbo file. It's 1240 Stone Canyon Road, and it looks the same, Paul. I don't think this house has changed much. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. This house, also the tax records show that it has not been sold or changed hands since the 70s. So it might be almost identical. But from Google Maps, it looks very, very similar. So it's Edna at her house. It's a large home in the same area, Bel Air, Holmby Hills. And Columbo is there to talk to her about what's happening in her inheritance from the will. She is wearing this beautiful bright green wool suit with brass buttons. She looks awesome. This is an interesting scene because Columbo doesn't really suspect her, right? Or like, we're pretty sure he doesn't suspect her, but he still wants to get a feel for what's going on. So they're just kind of talking about the situation, and maybe part of it was to move the plot or the storyline forward. But we learn that Edna is not interested in the value of the paintings, but she wants to give them all away. And Rudy really wanted to give them all away. That he had finally realized that these paintings should belong to the people, to the public, and be enjoyed by everybody. So Columbo is there just to talk with her. And then Dale, the nephew, shows up at her house, apparently at Columbo's request, and Columbo tells Dale that the murder weapon was found just up the hillside from that house. And Edna is like, she's so naive in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, can you believe it, Dale? The murder weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And Dale is like, Edna, oh my goodness, don't say another word. So,
Yeah.
he's trying to pretend to want to protect her. But this is an interesting scene because this is another one of those moments after Columbo is finished talking with Edna. She wants to go shopping with friends. He's like, go shopping with friends. You're fine. So Columbo and Dale have a chat, just the two of them. And this is another funny moment between the two of them where Dale is like, oh, it couldn't possibly be her. She's so innocent and naive and, clueless. And Columbo's like, yeah, you're so right, Dale. I totally agree. It's a good little moment. And then Dale is caught off guard again, just like when Columbo took his house key. And he's like, right, yeah, that's what I was saying. She's totally.
Yeah, we don't have to look her up. We don't have to check in on her.
So there's just a couple more scenes. So Dale talks to the lawyer, Frank, played by Don Ameche, and convinces Frank that they need to get Edna's house searched so that she is proven innocent and there can be no more suspicion about Edna. And Frank is like, are you sure? Dale says yes. And so Frank pulls some strings in the police department to get Edna's house searched, supposedly out of concern for Edna and her her innocence or whatever. So, Paul, do you recognize Don Ameche, right? What else has he done? He's probably not.
Cocoon was a one he won in a Best Supporting Actor Oscar, I believe.
Oh, that's such a good movie.
And then he was like in Trading Places. He was the Wall Street guys who made the bet.
That's right. That's where I recognize him from.
Yeah, so he's good with seriousness, good with comedy. And so Trading Places, Cocoon were some of the later ones.
Yeah, those are pretty big name movies right there.
Mm-hmm.
I love Cocoon. I need to watch that one again.
Yeah, I don't think I ever saw that one.
What, Paul?
Yeah, I know. I need to watch that.
Watch it. It's so good.
I've thought about watching it. Yeah, I've never seen it.
Oh, it's a really good one. I think I watched that one in high school, and it was I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I can't remember why I missed it, because occasionally there would be really big movies that I just was watching something else,
Or you might have been in college. College, you miss stuff, I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. There's a lot of stuff. Because sometimes I would think, not that one in particular, but like Die Hard and...
You missed Die Hard?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see it until years later.
Okay. But you've seen it now,
because
right?
I just... Yeah. I mean, I just thought they were just like commercial...
Yeah.
Just not good, And then I would see him, several years later, and I'm like, oh, wow, that was really good.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Paul, I mean, if we are ever short of content to talk about, we should talk about Die Hard, because that is like some of the best ever. I love those movies. The first three are so good.
Yeah.
Okay. So Dale tells Frank, we got to protect Edna, get her house searched. Then next scene, he plants the stolen paintings in Edna's car. He puts them in, so he knows she's shopping at the Beverly Center, and he sneaks into her car, plants the stolen paintings while she's getting paged at the Beverly Center, and then he and the lawyer drive home with her to walk her through what's going to happen and try to calm her down, say it's no big deal. But Dale has planted these stolen paintings in her car, and they bring it in, and this is when he is going to plant them in her house so that it looks like she actually did steal them. And this is the last scene. So Dale and Frank, the lawyer, escort Edna into the house after she's been shopping, and the stolen paintings are hidden in some of her shopping boxes, and they bring it all into that living room or the front room there. And I love that Edna also has a bar, also with a bucket of ice. Just like
that's full.
it's full, it's cold, it's full, it's there, just like Tracy O'Connor at her apartment. And everyone's like, oh, I need a drink. So they are making scotch. Everyone drinks scotch here.
And when she's going on and on about, like, I don't think we should do this, why are they here? Don Ameche does these great, like, sort of glances at her, real subtle. Like, maybe she is guilty. He's just kind of like listening to her, but he's got this sort of, maybe she's guilty.
I didn't notice that. I'll have to rewatch that part.
Yeah, watch it again when they're at the bar and she's talking.
Yeah, because when Dale is convincing Frank, played by Don Ameche, Frank is like, are you sure she's innocent? Are you sure we should do this? So you can see in this, I guess, apparently, I'll have to rewatch it. So I want to see that more closely, that he's not totally sure. He's like, I don't know if this is a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dale poured everyone a drink, and then he pretended to spill some on himself so that he could leave the room and go back to her packages from the stores where he had hidden the stolen sketches. They're actually pastels, not paintings, even though I've been saying paintings. So he can get the stolen pastels out of her boxes and hide them in another spot in the house so they'll be found when they have this search. So he spills something or pretends to, and then goes to the boxes, moves the paintings into the bathroom, and then the police show up just very shortly after to do a search. And Columbo shows up after the police because this is not actually Columbo's operation. Like he wasn't actually interested in doing this, and he apologizes to Edna. He says, I'm sorry, I didn't want to do this. This is not my idea. And then this is one of the best parts, and this is very clever. This is not not a very typical Columbo ending, but they find the stolen paintings, they bring them out in front of the police, and the police check them for fingerprints. And Dale says, I don't know what fingerprints you're looking for, but mine are definitely all over those because I helped my uncle unpack those. And Columbo says, well, they're looking for mine because when you came home that night with that carrier for paintings, I touched something inside, and I think it might be these. And then after they check, they find that, in fact, Columbo's prints are on the stolen paintings. And Dale says, well, you must have touched them right now. I'm sure this is a setup. You just touched them. And Columbo pulls his hands out of his pockets, where they have been this whole time, in his pockets of his trench coat, and he's wearing gloves. So it's clear that there's no way his fingerprints could have gotten on these paintings. And it kind of freezes there. That's kind of like the end. Columbo with his hands and the gloves, and Dale just screwed.
Yeah, he gets so mad. He's like, you're tricking. This is entrapment. You just did that.
It's so good. It's such a good ending. I think this is one of the very rare Columbo endings where he pulled some kind of trick. Not trick, but you know what I'm saying? Where he does something that kind of entraps the criminal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sort of sleight of hand.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's good.
The aunt is like, she's getting hit blindsided.
Poor Edna. She's just like, what?
So like Lee Grant, she was blacklisted. So she didn't work in film and TV for several years.
Oh, wow.
And it was only because she would sign petitions for like civil rights and that kind of thing. She said when she did because the blacklist scare was so powerful in terms of its poisoning people's thoughts and stuff. Like she did a movie with Ginger Rogers, and Ginger Rogers' mother didn't want her daughter, saying this particular line because she thought it sounded like a commie a communist would say. And Kim Hunter said, so they gave the line to her. And Kim Hunter says, you want to know what the line was? The line was, share and share alike, because that's democracy.
Wow, crazy.
You
oh
know,
my gosh. Paul, all these themes are like coming back today in 2020.
exactly. It's you just sort of like poison. It's not about understanding the truth of something. It's sort of like making you feel like you're inferior, if you believe in something, and that only our way is the right way, and that if it's anything else, then you're wrong. She talked about that. I think she's born in Detroit and lived there for a few years, and her dad died when she was like 3. And then her mom met another guy who moved them down to Miami Beach. And while she was there, she got into theater in high school, and she joined a group called the Theater 15 in Miami Beach. And incidentally, these 15 people that formed the Theater 15, this was like right before World War II, they were all from Pasadena, the Pasadena Playhouse. Yeah. And so when World War II started, the director of the Theater 15 in Miami Beach moved back to Pasadena. His name was Hal McKean, I believe. He was the director. And she loved theater so much. She loved movies, that she wrote him a letter saying, what should I do? I want to do theater. And he said, why don't you come out to Pasadena? And so she was involved with the Pasadena Playhouse. She did a couple plays here. She was in Arsenic and Old Lace with Raymond Burr at the Pasadena Playhouse from Perry Mason.
Yeah.
But I feel in a way that she was framed in real life, because she was thinking with her heart and wanting things to be better for people. But the people who were putting out this red list, of stuff was all about, a lot of it about fear, and distorting facts and stuff, especially with people who were involved with certain things, going to meetings of people and stuff for civil rights. It's complicated, but for sure, I think it was. And she said it was about making money too. She said vigilantes were encouraging the blacklist. They were making money from it. They would get money from giving names out. But she said that she worked in theater during that time. She said that the theater was hit, but she was still able to get work in the theater.
That's good. Man, that's crazy. I can't imagine.
Yeah. So she said she's most known for the, I guess, Streetcar Named Desire. Mm-hmm. And she played the ape in Planet of the Apes, Zira.
Oh, wow.
Dr. Zira. Yeah. So she was in all 3 of the first Planet of the Apes. But she says she gets letters from all over the world, usually about that character of her playing Zira.
That's awesome. I haven't seen those in a very long time, but I did really enjoy that series, the Planet of the Apes movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rod Serling, I think, wrote the first one, the Twilight Zone creator.
Yeah. Well, should we give our overall rating, Paul?
Yeah.
How you rate this one in terms of all these shows we've seen so far?
Yeah, this one, I wish I could. I need to write down the ratings that I give, but
yeah, me too.
Because I'm probably repeating myself. Okay. I think the overall sort of trajectory seemed okay, a little rambling maybe, but watching it a second time and just seeing the scenes that I did like, and then having like the Ross Martin scenes in Columbo, those 2 I mentioned, where they're sort of Ross Martin's getting really upset and Columbo's like, oh, you got me all wrong. Like, and then he's stumped. I loved those. I really did. Mm-hmm. And then having an appreciation for all the other performances, I felt again, like for Rosanna Huffman, Ameche, Kim Hunter. I appreciated Kim Hunter's role more. I think she really embodied this sort of flaky character. I think that was probably on the script, is my guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I've seen her, like in the interview I saw with her, she's nothing like that.
Right.
And this was an interview from 2005 or something, or maybe earlier than that. I can't remember. So maybe like 8.1, like a
little more than an
out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Out of a 10.
Totally. I was going to say 8 also. I loved the scene with the landlady.
Yes, her too.
Amazing. Mary Wicks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, was it Mary Wicks or Wickies? I forget.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So good. And then the scenes that you pointed out too, between Columbo and Dale Kingston, the two of them head to head, Columbo trying to calm him down and assure him that he's not, on his tail or whatever. Those scenes are so awesome. Tracy O'Connor, I thought her performance was really good. I thought she was really believable. And, the costumes were great. Anyhow, there were moments where I don't like, in a lot of the Columbos, the villain has some qualities that make me appreciate them a bit, that make me appreciate like where they're coming from and why they would do that sort of thing, even if I would never agree with them or, never want to act in that way. There's something about them that I can appreciate and understand and just empathize with. But in this one, the villain, I have a very hard time empathizing with him. But all the other supporting characters and then his interactions with Columbo and the way those go make me give this a pretty high rating. I would say, an 8 out of a 10. That's a pretty high rating for one of these shows.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say, just two little tidbits. The screenwriter, Jackson Gillis, he lived to be 93 years old.
Wow.
He wrote several episodes for Columbo, and he also did Murder, She Wrote, several for Murder, She Wrote. But he did Perry Mason. I'm trying to think of how many Columbos he did. Yeah, he did 11 episodes of Columbo.
Wow.
And both Ross Martin and Peter Falk were in a huge budget film as bad guys, but it's a comedy, and it's called The Great Race by the guy who did the Pink Panther movies, Blake Edwards. And I watched it recently, and you could see where I don't know if it failed at the box office or what. It's super long.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody in my family got kind of bored with it, except for me and my oldest boy.
Yeah.
And he loved it. He especially the ending, he was just dying laughing. But Ross Martin plays this sort of evil character who fences Tony Curtis. And Peter Falk plays him and Jack Lemmon are they're kind of like based on Laurel and Hardy a little bit, but they wear black all the time. And Tony Curtis wears white all the time. And they also they really remind me of my kids, the Mad Magazine, The Spy versus Spy.
Yeah.
There's the spy in black and the spy in white. And then in the movie, The Great Race, Natalie Wood plays sort of like the go-between between the two, the black team and the white team, so to speak. And she would play the female character in The Spy versus Spy who beats both of the spies. So I feel like the artist of The Spy versus Spy must have seen The Great Race, but who knows? But Ross Martin and Peter Falk are both in it, and Ross Martin's more straight, even though it's a comedy, but Peter Falk's really funny. He's really silly. Plays like a dope. He plays like the skinny guy from Laurel and Hardy, which I don't know which one is which.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so we both did our ratings, and I don't know, Paul, it's been a while, but do you have a quiz thingy for me, like a true, false, true, what's real, what's not real for me, or not? That's fine.
Oh yeah. So Kim Hunter, she was best known for her role in the Planet of the Apes movies, Zira. Mm-hmm. So in the last one she did, Escape from Planet of the Apes, she is in this cage for part of the movie, and the guy who takes care of her, there's two other actors who are like the doctors, the psychiatrists or psychologists who check out the monkeys from space, or the apes from space, I should say. But the caretaker guy is an actor that I did acting with.
Oh, Paul. I don't know. Your voice got a little high at the very end there. I'm going to say it's false.
No, actually, I did.
Yeah. I'm so bad at detecting your lies.
Yeah, no. I was looking him up, and the odd thing is, when you go to Escape from Planet of the Apes, you can see his photograph. If you watch the trailer for Escape from Planet of the Apes, you can see him in there when they have the three apes in the cage. but they didn't give him credit on it's really weird. I remember renting the movie because his name is Randall. I forget his last name. Unfortunately, Randall passed away a few years ago. But he was a very passionate actor. I met him through Michael Stipenich, who was an audition teacher who taught, that movie Knocked Up?
Yeah, I like that
Who's
movie.
the lead in that, the female lead?
Good question. I'm not great with the names.
Let's see. Her name is Katherine Heigl. So so Michael Stipenich taught her at one point. But his biggest thing was really he took over audition coach named Michael Shurtleff. And Michael Shurtleff was an audition. He auditioned people in New York, like Robert De Niro. I think he was the casting director for Bob Fosse. And my friend Michael Stipenich took his job over. He would substitute for him, but he eventually, both of them retired. But Stipenich would get a group of actors together and we would all just have fun. And Randall was one of them. And when Randall passed away, they made a T-shirt for him that had Escape from Planet of the Apes on it. Because that was one of his big roles. Awesome. And he was a really, really interesting guy. I wish I had gotten to know. I actually wrote a short film for him. And he said, is this sort of a scary short film? Because he read it. We never got to film it, but I enjoyed working with him. And there's some other really good actors that we used to play around with doing scene work and stuff.
Very cool. That's awesome. Yeah, it's such a small world, an LA world there where, you have some connection and
totally.
Yeah, that's awesome. Paul, I have just one more thing.
What's that, Liz?
Thanks for listening.
All right. Yeah, thanks for listening.
And thank you to Maxime Gervais for our theme song, Columbo.
Yes, thank you, Maxime.
If you'd like to add to our conversation, you can email us at trenchcoatcigar, all one word, @gmail.com, or find us on Instagram at trenchcoatcigar.
Woohoo!
For listening, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Rien à foutre devant l'expertise policière. T'avais un plan sans faille, pensez à chaque détail. L'inspecteur Columbo pensera toujours en dehors de la boîte. Toujours un cousin qui a eu un lavoto, qui a fait de la moto.